From corsets to crop tops, a fascinating look at the evolution of fashion. The earliest form of fashion. The earliest form of fashion can be traced back to the prehistoric era when humans began to use animal skin and fur to cover their bodies. The primary purpose of clothing during this time was to protect the body from harsh weather conditions. As humans evolved, so did their clothing. The ancient Egyptians, for instance, used linen to make clothing, while the Greeks and Romans used wool and silk. Fashion in different eras: medieval, Renaissance, Victorian, and more. Fashion has been an essential part of different eras throughout history. The medieval era saw the emergence of clothing with elaborate designs and embroidery. The Renaissance era brought about a shift towards more elegant and intricate clothing, with a focus on long flowing dresses and corsets. The Victorian era, on the other hand, was characterized by clothing that was highly restrictive and often uncomfortable, with corsets being the norm for women. The evolution of women's fashion. Over the years, women's fashion has evolved significantly. In the 1920s, women began to wear shorter and more comfortable clothing, with flapper dresses becoming popular. In the 1960s, the miniskirt became a sensation, and women started to wear pants more commonly. The 1980s saw the rise of power dressing, with women wearing shoulder pads and suits to assert their authority in the workplace. Today, women's fashion is more diverse than ever, with a focus on individuality and self-expression. From crop tops to maxi dresses, women have endless options to choose from, and there is no longer a one-size-fits-all approach to fashion. Men's fashion through the ages. While women's fashion has always been in the spotlight, men's fashion has also gone through significant changes over the years. In the 18th century, men wore wigs and elaborate clothing with embroidery and lace. In the 1920s, the focus shifted to more casual clothing, with men wearing suits and fedoras. In the 1960s, the hippie culture brought about a shift towards more relaxed and comfortable clothing, such as t-shirts and jeans. The 1980s saw the rise of preppy fashion, with men wearing polo shirts and khaki pants. Today, men's fashion is all about comfort, with a focus on streetwear and athleisure. From hoodies to sneakers, men have endless options to choose from, and there is no longer a rigid dress code for men's fashion. The rise of haute couture and designer fashion. In the early 20th century, haute couture emerged as a new form of fashion, with designers creating one-of-a-kind pieces for the wealthy and elite. The 1950s saw the rise of designer fashion, with the emergence of iconic fashion houses such as Chanel and Dior. Today, designer fashion is more accessible than ever, with luxury brands branching out to create affordable lines for the masses. With the rise of e-commerce and social media, fashion has become more democratized, and consumers have more power than ever before. Fashion in the 20th century, from flapper dresses to power suits. The 20th century was a time of significant change in fashion. From the flapper dresses of the 1920s to the power suits of the 1980s, fashion reflected the changing roles of women in society. The 1960s saw the emergence of the youth culture, with fashion becoming more casual and comfortable. In the 1990s, grunge fashion emerged as a rebellion against the excesses of the 1980s. Today, fashion is all about individuality and self-expression, with a focus on sustainability and ethical practices. The influence of popular culture on fashion. Popular culture has always had a significant influence on fashion trends. From the iconic outfits worn by movie stars, such as Audrey Hepburn and Marilyn Monroe, to the streetwear inspired by hip-hop culture, fashion has always been influenced by popular culture. Today, social media has become a significant force in shaping fashion trends, with influencers and celebrities setting the tone for what's in and what's out. Sustainable fashion and ethical practices in the industry. In recent years, There has been a growing concern about the impact of the fashion industry on the environment and society. The industry is known for its fast-paced nature, with new trends and styles emerging every season. However, this has led to a culture of overconsumption and waste. Today, there is a growing movement towards sustainable fashion and ethical practices in the industry. From using eco-friendly materials to promoting fair labor practices, fashion brands are beginning to take responsibility for their impact on the world.
Like and subscribe at official.iolanthe.